Good evening, everybody. Time is 7:06, and I am calling to order the Borough Council Work Session meeting for April 19th, 2022. That is our call to order. Item number 2 is a Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to be led by Mr. McGinnis. Okay, item number 3 is announced purpose of our April 19th executive session. The Borough Council, we met briefly to discuss personnel issues. And I apologize for being a few minutes late. I'd also like to ask if anybody is willing to move that we add an agenda item. I want to call it 6A, which will be a presentation by Sedona Tap House on a proposed addition. Is anybody willing to?
I make a motion, Mr. Stefano.
Second.
We amend the agenda.
Thank you. I have a motion by Ms. Dorsey and seconded by Mr. Flynn. Any discussion on that additional agenda item? Okay. Mr. Metrick, would you call that question, please?
Mr. Flynn? Yes. Ms. Vaccaro? Mr. McGinnis?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Ms. Dorsey?
Yes.
And Mr. Stefano?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay. Item number 4 is comment, suggestions, petitions by residents and attendants regarding items that are not on the agenda. If anybody would like to speak, come up to the mic, state your name and address for the record. And I didn't see none. Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item number 5, which is a presentation by the PA Chiefs of Police Association regarding accreditation. Chief Moorhead.
Good evening, Jim Moore. Good evening, Jim Moorhead, Chief, Westchester Police. At this time, I'd like to call up members of the Pennsylvania State Police of Chiefs Association, Director Scott Bond, and former Chief of Westchester, and Jim Adams, who's retired Chief of Upper Allen Police Department, and Jim runs the state accreditation program, and Madam Mayor is going to join me down here as well.
First of all, I'd like to thank Borough Council for the opportunity to publicly recognizing all the hard work that your police chief and members of his staff went through to become an accredited police department. And I just want to take a real brief moment and explain not just to Borough Council, because I suspect your chief has kept you apprised, but also the citizens of Westchester, so they recognize this is not just a sticker program for life. Actually, what it is, we have 125 accreditation standards, which are best practices in law enforcement that your police department have now met. And within those 125 standards, a lot of the standards have what we call bullets. And the reality of it is there's 370 best practice issues that they have to comply with. And not only do they have to have the policy to show that they comply with it, we require them to have what's called proofs of compliance to actually show that their agency is following those written directives and proofs. And fortunately, the program is growing. We currently in Pennsylvania have about 1,100 municipal police departments. We currently have 375 enrolled, which several years ago, your police department enrolled in our program, which put them in the top 34% of municipal police departments in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We've had in the history of the program, which went live in July of 2001, we've accredited 155 agencies, which means that's the top 14% of law enforcement agencies in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We currently have 142 agencies accredited. Somebody might think, well, how did you drop? Well, that's because it's not a sticker for life program. Every year, your police department has to send in what we call an annual report, which is quite lengthy, attesting to their policies still are in place, that their officers are still complying with those policies. And we occasionally lose departments. It's not that I'm proud of that fact, but it's a reality, and I think it goes to the credibility of the program. Then every 3 years, we go out and reassess agencies, and sometimes they haven't kept up with things and they lose their accreditation status. We currently have 142 agencies in our program as far as accredited. And Westchester Borough, I'm proud to announce, is in the top 13% of police departments across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So with that said, it's my honor to come here and publicly present the accreditation certificate to the police chief and your mayor. Thank you.
I'll be brief. On a personal note, it's good to be back. It's nice to see some familiar faces. Jim is correct. There's 1,062 municipal agencies in the state. Westchester is one of the small percentage departments that has now achieved it. It's quite an accomplishment. What that means is that they're engaged, and this is important for the community. It's important for the law enforcement community, the best standards and practices that exist in professional law enforcement. So, Chief, congratulations. I applaud your vision. I know you had obstacles along the way in achieving this, but you've overcome them, and congratulations to the department. I know a number of the people are in the back for their hard work. This is not an easy task, as Jim has mentioned. Thank you for all you've done.
I can say that I'm very proud of Chief Moorhead and all of the officers in the Westchester Police Department. Achieving this status is laudable. And so I'm happy that Westchester is in the top 13% of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. That's what hard work and dedication and commitment does. It gets you in the top 13%. And they overcame whatever obstacles they had to get here. And they will stay here. They will stay here because accountability is what's most important. It's very important in today's environment. And the fact that we are held to a higher level of accountability benefits everybody. It benefits the residents. It benefits the police officers who put their life on the line every day. And so I thank you.
Council, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Congratulations again. It's quite an achievement. Really proud of you. Thank you.
For your support along the way.
Of course. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item number 6, which is interviews. We have an opening for our Civil Service Commission. We have 4 candidates tonight. When I call up the candidates, we'll interview them tonight, and then tomorrow night we'll make a decision. Okay. So first we have Beth Ann Rossica. Beth Ann, are you here? Hey, come on up. Hey, yeah, come on right up to the podium. Yeah, thank you. And if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you would like to be considered for this position. Thanks.
Sure, thank you. Can you hear me? Is it working? Okay. And congratulations to the police department. That's a great accomplishment. So my name is Beth Ann Rossica. I've been a resident here in Westchester for over 20 years. I'm very passionate about our community. I love living here, and I am interested in being on the Civil Service Commission because I think that I have a number of skills that would be helpful to the commission. I worked in the human services field for over 25 years, primarily with at-risk kids and at-risk families. And so I spent my career doing that. I left that agency about 7 years ago, and I started my own consulting business. And now I work with human service agencies all over the country. And one of the agencies that I work with has a program called the Youth Police Initiative. And this is a program that brings together at-risk kids and police officers all over the country. And I've actually worked with police officers throughout the country implementing this program, understanding the issues that face police officers today and face communities across the country, from big cities to small areas to towns like Westchester. So I have a lot of experience working and talking with police officers, knowing what's going on. In my consulting business, I also provide a lot of work in the human resources area. So I consult on a various number of issues that face agencies about human resource issues that come up, whether it's related to hiring, whether it's related to termination, whether it's related to FMLA, all sorts of different issues. So I have a lot of experience in that area as well. I have hired hundreds of staff in my career, and I've advised companies on how to do recruiting, how to find the best candidates, and really how to interview people to understand what they really can bring to the table and if they'll be a good fit within the rest of the organization. Because sometimes it's not just about skills, it's about how the team is going to work together. We have a small number, relatively speaking, of police officers here, and I believe that looking at a number of different attributes would be helpful to making that team cohesive. I also would look forward to working with the chief and other people within the borough on how to make that team the most efficient. So that's a little bit about me. I have a PhD in education, just that's
Thank
my
you.
background.
Council, questions? Have any questions? One of my question I have would be, and I'll try and ask the same question to all the candidates, is what is your understanding of the role of the Civil Service Commission?
My understanding is that it's a commission of 3 people that helps to advise in terms of the final hiring process of potential employees coming to the borough. So it wouldn't be my decision or the commission's decision. It would be a team process along with other folks here at council or the borough that would be making those final decisions, being part of that team.
Questions, anybody? Okay. Well, I thank you. And there is a possibility we have to get some more information on about alternates. But if you weren't chosen, would you be willing to be an alternate?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, my goal is to help serve the community as best I can. So.
Okay. And like I said, I appreciate your willingness to serve. We're going to interview everybody tonight, and then tomorrow night we'll make a decision.
Okay, great. And as I said to you, I have to leave, so I'm not being rude. I just have another commitment. So thank you all for your time. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you. Okay. Second candidate is Mr. Tom Chambers. Come on down. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thanks. And same thing, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and
Okay.
why you want to be.
All right. Mayor DeBaptiste and members of council. I'm Tom Chambers, a graduate of Villanova University, Marine Corps officer, 12 years as mayor of Westchester, 8 years as a member of Borough Council, and also served 2 terms as a civil service commissioner here in the Borough of Westchester. Reason I applied for the position is I feel I can still contribute a lot to what the Civil Service Commission does. And I want to assist the commission and support them in the job that they have to do to certify and make eligible police officers for appointment to the department. Now, I did a lot of research in the last 6 weeks preparing for this interview. And I have put it into a synopsis of 4 minutes. So if you see the papers, don't get frightened that it's more than 4 minutes, because I know time is of the essence. Interestingly, the current rules and regulations were adopted in October of 1994 when I chaired the commission. And in reviewing them, I found that there is a need that the rules need to be revisited and brought up to date, particularly in light of Pennsylvania Legislation Act 43 that was passed in 2012, which is 18 years after the current rules were adopted. Since adoption in 1994, the current rules have been revised 10 times, 9 times between 1998 and 2010, and only once since 2010, in February of 2016. This 2016 revision deleted the requirement that applicants, in order to apply, had to have completed Act 120 certification. With only one revision in the last 12 years, there are changes needed to bring the current rules into compliance with Act 43 legislation. Just a few examples. The current rules state in Section 2.3, titled Organization of the Commission Quorum, that 2 commission members will constitute a quorum. However, with the passage of Act 43, it stipulates that 3 members of the commission shall constitute a quorum, and no action of the commission shall be valid unless it has the concurrence of at least 2 members. Secondly, there's no mention in the current rules of council appointing qualified electors of the borough to serve as alternate members of the commission. Act 43 stipulates that borough council may appoint no more than 3 qualified electors of the borough to serve as alternate members of the commission. In Section 1174 of Act 43, it spells out the reasons for alternate members and when and how they would serve. Section 2.1 of the current rules call for borough council to fill any vacancy of the commission within the period of 60 days after such vacancy occurs. Act 43 stipulates that any vacancy occurring in any commission for any reason whatsoever shall be filled by the borough council for the unexpired term within the period of 30 days after such vacancy occurs. To sum up what I just covered, if appointed to the commission, I would suggest that our current rules and regulations be reviewed by the solicitor in light of Act 43 of 2012, so they're updated and in compliance. Some final comments I would like to offer to Borough Council cover what I feel are the main attributes of what any appointee to the commission should possess. First, any commission appointee must be totally aware of the need for complete and total confidentiality when dealing with matters that come before the commission. For example, an applicant for a police officer vacancy will undergo at some point in the hiring process a psychological exam, and as he or she moves along in the process, a thorough background investigation will be conducted. The information contained in these documents can be very sensitive, and if revealed outside of only those with a need-to-know status, the information can be very damaging to the applicant. Secondly, and I realize this goes without saying, the commission must be totally apolitical and unbiased as it applies to the certification process relating to applicants for police officer positions and to promotions and in any deliberations, a disciplinary hearing that may come before the commission unless the hearing is open to the public. Third and lastly, the appointee to the Civil Service Commission should quickly become aware and knowledgeable of the following documents: the Civil Service Guide for Pennsylvania Municipalities, 5th edition, dated May 2017. It's a rather lengthy document, which I researched, provided by the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, that provides excellent guidance for boroughs as it relates to civil service commissions. Then the rules and regulations of the Civil Service Commission for the Borough of Westchester. Of course, I realize this goes without saying also. And finally, the section of Pennsylvania's Act 43 of 2012 that sets forth various requirements as they apply to the Civil Service Commission. There's work to be done, but I would like to commend the commission as I know it. I know the chairman very well, and Reese Davis. I know you have a vacancy. The job that they've done and commissions prior to that to make this Westchester Police Department what it is, as you saw with the accreditation and everything else, if it ain't fixed, it ain't broken, don't fix it. So thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, and I appreciate the homework you did. That's I mean, obviously your service before speaks for itself, so I appreciate that. Questions for Mr. Chambers? Any questions?
I just have one question, Mr. Chambers. You gave us a lot of details on your application, so thank you for that. And you mentioned that you were on civil service previously for 2 terms. When was that? That was the only date you left out.
82 to 85, and I was between my first and second mayor term. And after I got out of the mayor's office in 93, it was 94 to, maybe it was 96, I'm not sure, but it was that were the 2 times I was on there. I was there in 94 when we adopted the 1994 rules for the Civil
Right.
Service Commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank
you
you.
very
And as I
much.
said,
Appreciate it.
yep,
Thanks.
we'll discuss and we'll make a decision tomorrow night. Thank you. Up next is Troy Chapman. Mr. Troy Chapman, you here? Hey, good evening.
Good evening.
And yeah, same as the other candidates, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be considered for the vacancy. Thanks.
Mayor DeBaptiste, members of the Borough Council, fellow citizens. I originally came to Chester County in the middle 60s to go to school and have lived here off and on since then. Lived in Chester Springs for a while, lived in Sugartown for a while, and now I live in Westchester. I feel that I have an obligation to this county and to this borough. My family has lived here and it's been very, very beautiful for us. My background is a little different. I became a social service advisor for the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development when it first became a department. I then became the executive director of the Wilmington Housing Authority. And as the director of the Wilmington Housing Authority, back in those days, the Wilmington Housing Authority had a security force, a small police department, which eventually became part of the Wilmington Police Department, but I was responsible for that. I was an attaché at the American Embassy in New Delhi, India. I was a deputy director of the United States Peace Corps in India. I then became the director of the Westchester, Chester County Housing Authority, which I did as retirement. When I lived in the Virgin Islands, I went there basically because I enjoy sailing. I became a member of the governor's cabinet and became the administrator of the Law Enforcement Planning Commission in the Virgin Islands. I think I am qualified for the position. You asked, what do I know about it? Well, I have all of the paperwork on it, the rules and regulations of the Civil Service Commission for the Borough of Westchester, Pennsylvania, and also the Westchester Police Application Testing Form. And I've read all those. I believe that helps explain my background and why I am interested. One thing I might have left out is that I have been certified by the United States Department of Justice in law enforcement planning and attended Northeastern University for that, sponsored by the Department of Justice.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Thank
that
you.
information. Questions for Mr. Chapman? No? Mr. No, look like you're ready to ask a question. Ms. Dorsey? No. Okay. Sorry, I thought you were ready to ask a question. Okay. Thank you very much. Like I said, we'll consider this, and then tomorrow night we'll make a decision.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Chapman. If you weren't chosen, would you be willing to be an alternate? Thank you. Good. Make sure I ask the same thing. All right. Lastly, I have Mr. Jonathan Eady. Hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Great. Just like everybody else, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and why you'd like to be considered.
We'll give it a shot. Madam Mayor, Council. My name is Jonathan Eady, and I am a lifelong resident of the Borough of Westchester, although 53 years sometimes doesn't seem that long. But like all of you, I've had a penchant for public service for the borough. I've been a volunteer firefighter since I was 16 years old, which goes back a way. And I've held quite a few positions in the department, worked my way up officers up to a captain level. And currently I serve on a couple different boards. I'm president of the Firemen's Relief Association. So my interaction with the borough, the residents of the borough, and the police officers of the borough, as well as Borough Council, has been kind of unique to a lot of people because we see them in all kinds of different states. So I think that gives me a good idea of possibly understanding that the little part of what the commission does for the borough is just as important, although may not as time consuming as you all put into the borough. I think it's important that we all kind of keep focused and stay involved in the borough. And as my time in the fire department kind of weeds down, I'm still looking for ways to stay involved and not maybe totally take up all the kind of time that you folks put in, but I think this would be a good opportunity for me. So that's it. I'm willing to help out as any way I can.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Eady? Your understanding of the commission, how would you summarize that?
So my understanding of the commission is that it plays a role in supporting the borough and the police chief and the mayor and the process of selecting officers, and also making sure that the borough residents have a say in what goes on in the process. I think that's important that they know that the commission is there for them as well as to aid, and it's also to make sure that things are done on a proper level, on the disciplinary end as well, if on the back end of that too. So I'm not totally familiar with all the things that the commission has done. I'm not a part of that, but certainly working with the group coming in, I think we would be able to figure that out pretty quickly.
Great. And your willingness to serve as an alternate, say you weren't chosen, you would be
Sure,
willing.
absolutely.
Great. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks to all the candidates. It's really amazing to have so many qualified people willing to serve the borough and the community. I really appreciate that. We'll discuss, and then tomorrow night we'll make a decision. Thank you. All right, moving on to our new item, which was 6A, a presentation by Sedona Tap House on their proposed addition, if that's the right word. I don't.
Evening, council members, mayor. Thank you for making a little bit of time for this evening. I know we weren't on the initial agenda, but we did go through smart growth the other night, but we got a packed house here and I know they're not here to see me. So purpose tonight, my name's Adam Lowe, representing 44 West Gay LLC. Obviously the plaza is a big part of the borough and important when any decision is made there. We're coming a little bit early in the process. We were here about a year and a half ago, if some of you or one or two of you might remember, with a plan to expand the Sedona Tap House onto the patio. So there is existing seating that's there today, and we're looking to fully enclose that area. I think it's important that this time tonight is in no way intended to bypass or circumvent the normal planning process. We felt it was important before we spend considerable time engineering and planning to get in front of ultimately you guys who will make the decision whether this can go forward. So again, there will be another opportunity for Planning Commission as well as HARB to comment, smart growth, and back in front of you guys as well as the general public. So again, not trying to avoid that process, just looking for a little feedback if you guys can bear with us tonight. So tonight with me, just for a brief introduction, in the back I have Dave Trout, so he's owner of Sedona Tap House, and his partner, Pete Shivery. Again, Dave will probably give a brief just to give you, hey, this is what we've experienced over the last year and a half through COVID. Don't expect that to take more than 2 minutes, but if you'll entertain us, I'd like to do that. But if I could just, if you could endure me for a second, I'd like to do a brief, do you have the plan, Kevin, by chance? Cool. So what this is intending to do is to add an element of outdoor seating, but yet having a cover over top of it. So the prior plan that we introduced had a fixed roof, which was a bit more bulkier. I think the general feedback to that was it was too bulky and didn't fit well with the current plan and the time that we spent on design and engineering originally. This structure has a much lower profile on the roof line, so it almost fits back kind of tucked in that corner. We're looking to use similar materials. So where you see the black storefront there, that would be steel, metalwork, similar to the panels that surround the perimeter today. Difference would be those are fixed window panels. So those would be operable to be fully opened, and the intent is to provide a Four Seasons environment. So, Dave can speak a little bit more to the experience of operating a business in the borough through COVID and the weather conditions, which are unique, but also the way this building faces matters. And some of these items you have to really adapt organically and see how it operates. Just as you've seen us put tables out in the plaza, we're trying to take it in and respond to what the borough really needs. What's changed since the last time we came in front of you? So the main thing would be that the roof was always fixed. The commentary before was, can we make that retractable roof? We've looked at that, and you would need a much beefier structure. But the real element of retractable roof is a canvas type, which is a sunshade. So in looking at that, what we're trying to alleviate is the need to have covered space when the weather condition changes very rapidly. Just this morning, there was a river that was flowing down Gay Street. That was the fountain overflowing because the wind was hitting the little laminators. So we're trying to evolve and put the right plan in front of the borough at the right time. We hope that's now. But if you could, I'd like Dave to just come up for a few seconds, if you guys would endure that, just to understand what we're talking about. And if you have comments, here to answer it. But again, I know you have a packed agenda tonight, so I appreciate any time that you can add to give us some help.
Madam Mayor, council members, thank you. Thanks for having us back again. Adam was addressing some of the intent of the space here and what we've gone back and done here with this rendering. And I think the couple goals here, the goal really in kind of operating through this COVID environment is to kind of address the public safety concern that we have. There's certainly a high demand for guests to still dine outdoors with us. This new rendering does allow for some additional seating. I think we pick up in net probably about 10 or 12 additional seats from the covered patio that we have outside right now. There have been some concerns, as Adam indicated, with weather-related issues. The wind comes through this space very quickly, and when we have a pop-up storm, these umbrellas that cover the tables don't hold up too well, even though they're fitted in pretty strongly. They've got some challenges when the weather changes. So I think the other goal here, and Adam was alluding to this too, was to protect the integrity of this beautiful existing building that we're in. So we've done our best to match. In fact, we're using the same engineers and same architect that has designed the building. We've engaged Bernardin to work with our architect, Architectra, to really make sure we match the same existing metal panels. We're taking the same existing sign that's already above our building. We're just moving it out to the front facade of this new patio structure here. And we've designed these nano windows. That's the windows you're seeing in the front are nanotechnology, and they close inward, so they won't protrude out onto that planter box that you see depicted here in the actual plaza. So within minutes, we've got the ability to close this space up right away if a storm comes in. And, we think that it'll address the concern for additional outside seating, but it'll allow us on days that even off season to open these windows up completely in the fall or even the winter. If you have a 55, 65 degree day, you could open this space up. And I think people would feel very comfortable in that environment.
So in terms of stormwater runoff, so if there's a roof now, and I'm sure there's some kind of a gutter system.
Yes.
How's that going to work?
So we're managing a lot of that. You might want to speak to that a little bit, Adam, but we're managing, I will say this much. There's a lot to manage as far as stormwater. I think this is kind of the first stage in us understanding that we've got a lot to do a lot of work in developing some strategy around stormwater management. Currently, the runoff from the building now occurs in the backside, if you will, near the vestibule area. So all the drainage right now kind of filters down, inside of that back space, which would be a space that wouldn't really currently be occupied by guests. That'll be more of a storage area back there. We've talked about ways to integrate that back corner, if you will, that's been one of the challenges, figuring out how to integrate that into this current building. And we think we've figured that out. It might not be depicted very well here, but that's certainly a concern we're going to have to work through. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Still do essentially what it's doing now. Okay.
I have two questions.
Sure.
Are these accordion windows, are they operating as an accordion? Or are they individual windows?
They're operating as an accordion.
Okay.
Yep.
And then, do you know the height from the top of that planter to that roof? So this is a bizarre concern perhaps, but my concern is on evenings of bar happy evenings, that roof level and that planter level look invitingly close. And I've witnessed some happy folks making poor decisions. How are we going to prevent that?
Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Stefano and Mr. Lowe and Sedona. Thank you for coming back with this design. This is a substantial investment compared to the original design that we had. For members on council that weren't here, it was a canvas awning with plastic draped sides, which would not fit well in the stately building that we have standing there. And council recommended not to move forward with that type of thing. They could put a retractable awning on, but no plastic sides. And this is really substantially accent piece for the new building, which is nice. I mean, obviously you got to work out the details.
Sure.
But the this is a remarkably different proposal and investment you guys are doing, and I think this will work really well. So thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I agree, Mr. Flynn. I had to think back to that previous plan, but because last week I saw the presentation, and I agree. It's a much improved plan. So, yeah. Any other questions or thoughts from anybody? Anybody in the public have any questions or thoughts on this? Okay. Well, I appreciate you presenting it at this point. I know we'll see you soon, and
Thank
still
you.
can move forward. So, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to our committee agenda items. Under ACT, we have item number 7, execute a non-exclusive video sharing license agreement with PennDOT. This was recommended by the committee 3-0. Mr. Allen, anything?
Yeah, Sean, if you could take the details on this one. It's 202, right?
Yeah, this is a
Getting access to
standard
those cameras.
license agreement you have to sign if you want to use any of the data coming off of PennDOT-owned traffic cams. And our new employee, Nick, is updating our travel alert system. So he's pulling data from a bunch of different sources. I just wanted council to see this. This is not a big sum of information. This is a few cameras on Route 202 that may or may not be helpful to us in the long run, but I'd rather have council approve this agreement between PennDOT and the borough before I signed it.
So this just allows us to gain access if we need it?
Correct. Anyone has watched, the morning traffic report on
ABC or something like that, and you're seeing video of, you know, slow moving cars on 202, that's where it's coming from. They would have had to sign the similar agreement.
Okay. Questions, concerns? Good with consent on this? Okay. All right, that'll move to our consent agenda. Item 8, consider renewing Westchester Food Cooperative lease, 3-0 from the committee as well. Anything different about this from previous years?
No, yeah, this item 8 and item 9 are the same, just to allow that growers market environment that we all love.
Great. Questions? Are we good with consent on that or concerns? No? Okay. That'll move to consent. Item 9 is considering renewing the Westchester Growers Association lease. What's the difference between the co-op and the Growers Association?
The co-op like has the back part of the
They're
lawn.
just they're in that back.
Yeah,
oh, I
it's the-
understand.
it's the
Near
same
the
thing.
alley, right? Okay. I understand.
There was a schism in the past. I don't know all the details of it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Any concerns with this? Okay. So that'll also go into our consent agenda. Moving on to our public works items. Number 10 is award of a bid for a 2022 paving proposal. This was 3-0 from the committee. Mr. McCoy, anything to add to that or? Any concerns or consent okay? Okay, that'll move on to consent. Item 11, award of a bid for downtown Pike pedestrian crossing improvements. I'm assuming this is out off of Bradford and downtown Pike. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do have a picture in one of the attachments. This was a project that might look familiar to you because it was previously bid in September of last year, and the bid award came in at $114,000, the low bidder. And we didn't have enough money in the budget to do it last year. So we came back, we made a proposal to use ARPA funding. We got council on board with that idea. And then we went back to the contractor to see if they would do the project at that 114 number, but too much time had elapsed since we had done that. So we rebid the project and it came in at 62,000. So we went and talked to the contractor and to make sure they understood what they bid on and that they would honor the bid. And we're pleased that they said yes. And it's a very reputable contractor. I've worked with them before in my career, and we're just enthusiastic. Sometimes it works out to our benefit. And this is for the pedestrian crossing. I was stalling so we get the picture up there. This is imagine a drone flying above the entrance to the giant grocery store looking north. It's going to install a pedestrian crossing in that location and sidewalk on the north side of the street to connect those living units and families to a food retail center. So good idea.
Yeah, it's about time we had walkability to a grocery store. Any concerns? I mean, I feel like.
And this is a joint project with East Bradford
Yeah.
Township, so I really commend their Board of Supervisors and Township Manager for cooperation in getting this to the point it is today. So
It's great. And that the price is right. Coming down that much. That's amazing. All right. Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Metric, the crosswalk there, is that going to be able to have a timing device so the pedestrians can push the lights to change? Because it makes no sense to have the lights changing if there's no one standing there.
it should have pedestrian controls, but I can check on the
Yeah, because
specifications.
that road downtown Pike flows very freely, so there is a light there now, but, there's no sense offsetting it if no one's standing there.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good for consent on this then? All right, great. That's 11. That'll go to consent. We're moving on to item 12, which is approve Ecovanta electronic waste recycling contract renewal. That was 3-0 from the committee as well. Anything specific about that we need to know, or pretty routine? Okay. All right. Okay. Consent? All right. Great. That'll move on to consent. And then item 13 is approving the sale of 7 vehicles. This was also 3-0. I feel like this is routine as well. We put these up through, what's it called, municipal bid or something like that. Daryl's looking at, he's thinking about buying some. Any concerns with this, or we consent? All right, that'll all go on to consent as well. Thank you. Moving on to our parking committee item, we have number 14, consider adding one handicap space in front of 402 West Union Street, South Side. This has to be done through ordinance, correct? So this would be to schedule an ordinance. Is that the hearing? Okay. This was 3-0 from the committee, so do we want to pick a date? And then if everybody consents, we can put that in the consent agenda. Is that, you're good? I don't have a calendar in front of me. There was one up here. The May meetings are a little different, correct?
Yeah, the May meetings are being held Monday, the 16th, because we have a primary on the 17th, and then the work session, the voting session is on May 18th, so we could do it on May 18th. The May meetings for council and anyone listening are going to start a half hour earlier. That'll be our new start time. So we could maybe could have that hearing at 6:30.
I think that makes sense for something like this. This is doesn't take up much time. All right, so we'll call 14, considering this item for Wednesday, May 18th at 6:30 p.m. Are we good with consent on that? Any questions or concerns? Okay, that'll go on our consent agenda. Before we get to our public safety items, Mr. McGinnis, you had something you wanted to that relevant to public safety?
Yes, I just wanted to acknowledge Chief Moorhead for rallying other police departments across Chester County to donate Kevlar vests to the citizens and troops over in Ukraine that are fighting Russian aggression. So thank you, Chief Moorhead.
'22. Mr. O'Brien, I see you coming on up. I know we have several options in front of us. One is to not close it. One is to do it Friday through Sunday, and one is to close it 24/7. So I don't know if you have any new information on that, or.
The borough manager wants to update. I think the options have been kind of laid out to everyone. We did get written commitment from PICO that they would work, if we pursue the weekend option, a Monday through Thursday schedule. So that way we could close it Friday morning through Monday morning. Logistically, I do think that's the best option in front of us. But as I've mentioned in public safety last week, the big X factor here, even I think council should make a decision whether you do it tonight or tomorrow night, but this month, is going to be local control the road back and getting that final turn back of Gay Street to the borough, because whatever you decide today or tomorrow is going to be predicated on local control. And right now we don't have that. I don't know if there's any further update on that, but that's the one thing I'm just a little worried about, that, regardless of what happens here, I don't want to create some false hope and then have the state not follow through. And I know Carolyn Comita's office, the state center, has been engaged, so is Representative Herron's office. But the wheels turn slowly in Harrisburg. So yeah, so as of today, everything that the central office wanted fixed on our application was delivered, and I found out about that problem last Wednesday in an email that was sent 2 days before to our traffic engineer. That problem's been corrected. It's in PennDOT's hands basically to approve this. We've done all we can. If council moves forward with this decision to close Gay Street partially or fully, my next move would be to start hounding PennDOT about, we knew this one way or the other way. Which way do you want to do it? Do you want to abandon the roadway back to the borough, or do you want to go through the closure process? Because time is run out. We've already been at this process for a very long time.
Mr. Metrick, is there any real risk that the state would not approve a temporary closure this summer, like they have the last two?
Don't think so, but we will ramp up the persistence on this particular issue. It'll be a daily contact with them.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Savana.
Go ahead, Mr. Flynn.
Mr. Kowalski, when you used to do the single night shutdowns for Music Fest or whatever it was called, Swinging Thursday, how long did it take you to get an approval from PennDOT from start to finish on the event? The only reason I'm asking is because if we decide to go just Thursday to Monday, we'd have some kind of gauge that, how long it's going to take to get an answer.
It's been several years since we've done the swinging summer Thursdays, but we didn't get PennDOT approval. We had a one-night, 5-hour window that we got through the Borough Police and SEPTA to make sure that we weren't interfering with bus routes. That's about it. Because of the short duration of the term, we never had to go through SEPTA, or never had to go through PennDOT, excuse me.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because if we just decide to go Thursday to Monday, I don't know whether we need PennDOT's approval on that.
I'm sure you would if we don't have local control. I'm
Yeah.
positive you would need that approval from them.
Just trying to skirt the issues.
I wish we could too, but
Sometimes it's easy to ask forgiveness and permission.
Okay. Ms. Dorsey, go ahead.
This has been a hot topic now for what, 3 months at least?
3+, yeah.
Yeah, at least. And what I heard you say earlier, Mr. O'Brien, was that, the best option or recommendation right now is the Thursday to Sunday closure, right? Or Monday morning?
So it'd be Friday morning, but we'd ask Public Works early Friday morning to place the barriers down. So we'd have it all day Friday, Saturday and Sunday, and then Monday morning, first thing, they would pick or move the barriers back into place. It would require at least probably on each block, one parking spot where the barriers would kind of have a home for the week. The bid is going to pay to have mainline concrete, bring them up from Hoops Park, and then also at the end, take them back down. And we're also recommending a Memorial Day through Labor Day event.
Okay. Thoughts? Mr. McCoy, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of doing the Thursday through Sunday. I think between the bid survey, I think you said it was 50% roughly.
Yes.
That's the preference of the folks in the bid. And between that and, potential parking access issues during the week. I understand from Mr. Metric giving us some information about roughly what it would cost for Public Works to do this on a weekly basis. But I think between that and some of the parking we regain, even at a low occupancy, I think it makes a lot of sense to do that.
I think Mr. Metric and you, Mr. McCoy, thank you, have provided like the financial impact to this. And the Friday morning through Monday morning it's recommended, has the least financial impact to the borough, and really looks like the best option here for us this year. And then we can plan on a larger scale what we want to do, assuming we get the abandonment going forward in 2023.
Yeah.
I think Al had some information.
Hey, Al, come on up. Yeah, sure.
I do want to make the council aware. I found out that Aqua is planning on doing a water main project on High Street from Gay Street to Ashbridge during the summer months.
Okay.
So
do you know like the times or dates or anything, any kind of detail on that, or?
I don't have any specific details, but I know they're looking at starting at the end of May, middle of May, end of May. So
yeah.
It's going to make it even worse.
Sure.
Obviously. So I just want to make you aware of that.
What were the streets again?
It's going to be from Gay Street all the way up to Ashbridge. They're going to be putting in a new water main in High Street. So that's one of the detour routes. So
hopefully that is only just like Pico during the weekdays, but we don't have that information for sure. I don't know if Aqua generally does their work done then.
And I would also think the borough should, I mean, if you're going to have Market Street closed at points and asking High Street to be closed at the same points, regardless of the Gay Street closure, I think maybe some pushback, because that's going to be a nightmare for having two major arteries at the same time.
Yeah, you would think those two companies, the two utility companies, would have some kind of
I mean,
communication.
They
know
don't
that.
talk, but I think that, the borough should hopefully, regardless of the Gay Street, kind of push back and say we need a little bit better coordination than working against each other on that.
Okay. Other thoughts? My thoughts are that I think I'm in agreement with the Friday morning through Monday morning. I think in addition to all the concerns we had, this is also an opportunity for us to see how this is going to work, because we haven't done it this way yet. I still want the 24/7, but I do think this year might probably makes the most sense to do Friday through Monday. Yeah, Mr. Metric.
I would very much want council, and if we're going to go forward with this in collaboration with the borough and the bid, that we stress the noun flexibility here, because we're going to be doing something we haven't done before, which is close and reopen quickly, doing it 15 times. There could be, I know you've allayed one of my biggest fears, John, and I thank you for the communication with Pico about there being overlap with Market Street while we close Gay Street. But there's saying it, putting it in writing, and then, what actually is going to happen when the rubber meets the road. So we need to be communicating pretty much every weekend between the borough, the businesses, to set expectations in the right spot. And it's going to take us a couple weeks, to really iron out the wrinkles to do it.
Sure. Yeah. Understood. Yeah, and Mr. Allen.
I might be the last holdout for 24/7 right now, but I'm gonna stick it out and stick with that. I think it's the cleanest, most simple option. It's the fewest number of moving parts. I continue to think that in the grand scheme of the parking picture, it's not a huge hit. The cars that are coming in to park in the borough have to end up somewhere anyway, and we have wonderfully maintained garages for that. I just have to think that a decent percentage of that parking will still be captured in the borough. So I think it's the simplest option, personally.
Understood. Yeah, Ms. Ficarra.
I believe I've made myself abundantly clear, but I am definitely in support of the 24/7. I think it's much cleaner. I think ultimately our goal is to create some sort of permanent, or as permanent as possible, open air market. I want to keep moving in that direction. I want to push the businesses in that direction. I want to maintain expectations of the borough residents and the people outside of the borough who come to visit. I want to add more parking spaces in other areas to capture the lost parking. This is the direction we should be moving in. I completely understand that this is difficult, but it's always going to be difficult. So why wait? I'm more of the pull the Band-Aid off quickly person, and that's my take.
Okay. So that all being said, I feel like this is not going to go on consent. So for sure, but discussion. But I do want to open it. Yes, I know. I was going to say I want to open it up to see if there's anybody in the public who would like to speak. And it looks like Mr. Gailey would like to.
Thank you. I dressed up for you guys. I missed you all, Dana most of all. Michael Gailey, 412 West Union Street. This was one of my pet projects when I was on council. And I will say, other than maybe questions about parking, it is the only question that I still get from residents and neighbors in the 4 months since I've been on council, which is, are we still going to close down Gay Street? Are we still going to close down Gay Street? I've probably been asked that question 50 times, if not more, from different residents since the new year. And that to me suggests that that's what everyone here wants. Everyone that lives in this community loves it. I haven't heard a single one of my residents when I was on council say anything negative about it. I would agree with Sheila and Nick that the 24/7 option is best. But hey, if we get the weekends, great. But I did want to come tonight and just say, like, look, this is something I've continued to hear about since I've been off council, that people love it and want to see it again. So I appreciate it, and it's good to see you all.
Thank you. Any other comments from anybody in the public? Yeah, come on down. Just make sure you state your name and address for the record. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Kane Bender. Live in the northern part of Westchester. I've been a resident for 3 years. Closing down, I'm for that 24/7. I just started hearing the difficulty of communication back and forth just to make sure, the Friday to Monday morning can happen. And I can see that would be very difficult. The second thing is I was a resident of Pleasant Grove for years, and I know all my old neighbors loved the fact that the town was open, and they all came to visit. So they didn't share any problems with parking. They all found parking not a problem, but they did bring friends that were not even from Westchester and brought them into town. So,
Thank you, Mr. Bender. Appreciate that. Is that Miss Brown back there? I can't see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on down.
Good evening, Holly Brown, 37 West Gay Street. And I was here last week at the public safety meeting to express my opinion on this. Some of you do know that I've been advocating for shutting down that street for like 20 years now. And a long time ago, I sat in front of Vincent's, which was, of course, before Sidebar. And I counted the cars that went around and around and around, not knowing that that was actually just a place that people cruised the way they did. And I was shocked to see how many cars and motorcycles kind of just went around and around. I counted some cars that went 5 or 6 times. They were just cruising down the street, playing their music, being noisy, and kind of being a pain in the ass, frankly. But so I think closing that street, we found out last year, does not really inhibit traffic in any really horrible way. Most people then now go, I'm not going to go through, I'll go down Chestnut Street. So what I decided to do was, I know we did a survey with the businesses, and I understand probably the businesses on Gay Street like it closed because it helps them, at least the ones that are serving the public. Now, people that have offices probably don't like it so much because there are people who may have a little more trouble finding parking, but those people are going to come anyway. They're making appointments and they're going to be there. So it's not going to really impact their business in any way. And if you don't mind, I'll give you a little background. Way back before I was on council, I think I'm probably going back 15 years, 18 years, was when people started requesting to have some of the parking spaces. Vincent's was the first one that asked. They had 2 parking spaces in front of their restaurant. They were asked the borough to vacate those spaces so they could cover that space up and put a sidewalk there. They were granted that, and so we lost 2 spaces. They didn't pay for them. They had to pay for the sidewalk itself, which I don't believe cost them any more than these people who are doing temporary sidewalks have paid for their temporary sidewalks. Then where Maze is now, which is New York Sandwiches, they were allowed to vacate a space, and they got that. And then when Tekka bought the firehouse, which was not a parking space, but it was a driveway into the firehouse, they were allowed to, instead of making that a parking space, they were allowed to then expand their sidewalks. Now, none of those people that were given that pay for any of that now. They get that free. So when I got on council, the next person that came in, I think was Social. It wasn't Social Lounge, but it was in that building. Came and asked to vacate another parking space, 2 for them. And I said, I don't think we can do that anymore. We can't keep giving up parking spaces because then once someone leaves, if it's not a restaurant any longer, we've lost that space permanently. That is when I suggested that we build these temporary parking spaces. And then people would pay for the parking space if they took it up during the summer. They, of course, then have to put them in, take them out, pay for the storage, added cost. I know one of the things that you're concerned about is the loss of revenue for the spaces. I might make a suggestion, if the street were closed, all of the restaurants, you divide up all the parking spaces in those 3 blocks, divide up the cost that you're lost, and have all of the restaurants pay for them. So those who got the free spaces before, those who have to have parking spaces now where they're paying for their parking space, and then all the other restaurants then share in that cost. So I think if you could look at that financially and see what benefit that might be, that would be great. But I know that when I was on council, we had a CTY call-out system where we could call the citizens. We had everyone give their email, their phone numbers, landlines back then. so that we could send out some kind of information when a decision like this was going to be made, so we get input from the citizens. I don't think that exists anymore. So you're kind of flying blind because a lot of people don't know when to come in and discuss something like this. So I sent an email out. I don't know if you want me to read it because I don't want you to think I was trying to influence anyone. So I wrote, tomorrow night at council work session, the council will be making the final decision on whether or not to close Gay Street for outside dining. I believe they have decided to close the street, but not need to decide if it should be closed 24/7 during the summer or just Friday through Saturday. I did not give the option of no closure because I didn't really know that was an option. So that's either. A survey was done among the businesses, but I believe that there should be input from the residents. It is hard for council to make decisions that benefit most of us if we don't show up for these discussions. If you have an opinion, and don't we all, and have time, please show up tomorrow night. I said something about moving on the agenda. That doesn't matter. In full disclosure, because I live on Gay Street and I hate the noise of the cars and motorcyclists who feel they are here to entertain us, my vote is for 24/7 street closing. But you may feel differently. So please either show up or email me back with your opinion. I will take your names and comments with me. And please forward this to any friends that you think might be interested. Now, I sent that out to maybe 50 people, 45, 50 people. And if you all know, if you've ever tried to get answers from people, if you get a 5 or 10% response, you're extremely lucky. I have the names of close to 50 people in 24 hours. All of them went 24/7. There was not one person that said don't close it at all. I had one person that said they liked either, it didn't matter. And I had one family, oddly enough, where the mother, the father, and the children all disagreed. So, but 99% of the people that answered me want 24/7 closure on the street. And these are the people that support the businesses on that street. So I really think they're the people that should be listened to when you're making a decision like this. So I've got to rest my case there. And if you have any other questions, feel free to ask me. I'll be right back.
Holly, if I could ask just a quick question. I totally appreciate what you're saying. And my concern is for 2022 with PICO and what the police department, fire department have both said about access through there. That is sort of one of my primary concerns about making it 24/7 as opposed to doing it part-time. I think hopefully longer term we can make the decision plan for being able to do it whenever we want. But is there any concern about the chief and chiefs?
Talking to me?
Something that went into your thinking.
Well, I agree with Sheila. I mean, there's so many times people say, I can't do it because blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's always objections to being able to figure something out. And usually you can figure it out. And I understand the problems this year, and this may be a moot point since we have all this construction going on the street. But the interesting thing is that when I got these, there were 5, and I can give you this list if you want. I didn't make copies of it, but I can leave it here and you can have a copy of it. There were 5 people who, without my mentioning it, because you heard what I wrote, said, I want the street closed all the time. I want a pedestrian walkway. I want, and I have a lot of those studies. As I explained when I came to the meeting 20 years ago, I started studying this. I've been to probably 8 or 10 of these throughout the country just to see what they're like and what makes them successful and what doesn't. And 2 of the things that we have that makes it successful is an east-west and a west-east street. Well, it'd be north-south and south-north, depending on where you are, and residents around the area. The ones that didn't work were the ones that put them in areas that were all office buildings because they close at night, they close on the weekend, and really they're open for lunch, and that's about all it is. We have a situation, like many of the other ones that really work throughout the country, that would make it a really successful thing. I understand the difficulties this week with the construction. I would just say if you can work it out, that'd be great. If you have part of Gay Street, we're going to do some work, so that one block may get closed for that week. But I think it's a lot easier than, I'm a numbers person too. So when I think about having to have those public works people coming in and opening and closing that street every single weekend, signs up, signs down, barriers up, it seems like a nightmare to me. But, so anyway, throwing that out there, the people seem to want it closed.
Thank you. Ms. Dorsey.
Yeah, I think what residents should probably understand is that for the most part, everyone up here, I think, wants the 24/7 closure. We want to do it correctly. I think we've done it the last 2 years out of necessity. right? And it hasn't always been the best, although it still attracted people to the downtown. We have some uniqueness, as Mr. McCoy was saying earlier, this year with Pico. Now, it seems every month we we come and we're ready to make a decision on this. There's another variable that has been thrown into the decision. This week, tonight, it's Aqua. We did not know about Aqua. Pico. And the chief of police and the fire department have raised some concerns around their ability to respond to an emergency and save lives. And so I'm one of few up here who wanted to do the right thing so that, you know, if there is an emergency, we can get to people and save lives. I think the 50 or the, you know, Friday to Monday morning is a compromise for this year. But the long-term goal, I think, from everyone up here is to close it 24/7. There are, you know, folks would like to see that now. I just don't know that we can do it effectively and keep everyone safe.
I
And
understand your
next,
concern. I just wanted to give you, I want to do a quick survey. If I had more time. And
I
like,
appreciate
get to
that.
hundreds of names, I'm sure. But I would ask a favor. If it does, I hope you do 24/7. If it's only 3 days, can we please go back to like the quiet zone? Because the motorcycles and cars are just out of control going down that street. It's ridiculous. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. O'Brien? Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing. So my concern with Pico and during the day, because I know with the residents, like a lot of people, you know, they commute for jobs. So being here during the day is a different look when Pico work's going on than at the evening time. It's the deliveries and the trash trucks. It's having 18-wheelers or large trucks coming through and trying to navigate when both roads are closed. I'm not as concerned because I think if it were just talking about passenger vehicles, yes, we could easily find a way around that. My concern is also getting deliveries there and not getting a ton of 18-wheelers idling on Church Street as they're walking their deliveries down, whether it's Market Street or now Gay Street as well.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Since this is going on discussion, I feel like we've exhausted our discussion for tonight. So we'll move it to discussion for tomorrow. And I do appreciate the comments from everybody here tonight. But we'll talk about this tomorrow and hopefully make a decision. I think we have to make a decision tomorrow. So thank you. Okay. All right. So that's going on discussion. On to item number 16, which is discuss Westchester Chamber of Commerce, the Christmas parade. I was at that meeting last week, so I saw that. Hey, how are you? Hey, come on. Hey, Keith.
Rio. Hello, council members, mayor. Thank you for presenting or allowing us to present on the agenda tonight. I am here as well with Matt Holliday. Matt is the executive director of the Chester County Bar Association, and he has also served on the chamber board for over 7 years now. I am here tonight, as you know, to discuss the possible return of the Christmas parade in the borough of Westchester and why we need the support from the council in order to make that happen. So I do want to provide some background for context. As you all know, the past several years have presented significant challenges for many businesses and organizations in our community, including the Chamber. The Chamber is funded primarily through membership dues from businesses in our community and non-member dues in the form of sponsorship support for programs and events. Both of these sources of revenue for our organization were negatively impacted as a result of the pandemic, and our board had to make some pretty tough decisions for our organization that included staff cuts, major shifts in how we were operating and supporting our members, and cancellations of events and programs. One of those programs that was canceled as a result was the Christmas parade. As you may know, the Greater Westchester Chamber of Commerce has been the presenting organization for over 30 years of several holiday events and displays in the borough of Westchester. This includes not only the parade, but also the Christmas tree display on the historic courthouse lawn, the holiday greens hung on the storefronts in the borough, the WSFS toy drive that benefits local nonprofit organizations, and most recently, the addition of the Chester County Hospital Lights Up Holiday Weekends in Westchester event, where the Chamber hired a professional decor company that hung string lights and lit garland on Gay Street, Market Street, and High Street. That was a nearly $40,000 investment that the chamber made to hang those lights in the Borough of Westchester. The holiday programs that are organized by the chamber are funded solely through sponsorship support from local businesses and organizations. 100% of the revenue to cover the costs of displays, street lights, and large community events like the parade are raised by the staff and board from the chamber. We estimate that our staff and volunteer time to plan the programming in Westchester adds up to approximately 880 hours of work over the course of 10 months. This equates to around $65,000 to $75,000 a year in personnel cost for our organization. After the conclusion of the 2021 Chester County Hospital Lights Up Holiday Weekends in Westchester event, which included the lights that I mentioned, and also 5 weekends of programming in the borough, the chamber surveyed our downtown businesses and sponsors to gather feedback on that event. Over 90% of the respondents indicated that they love the lights, they want to see the lights come back, but they want the chamber to bring back the beloved Christmas parade. So this brings us to our request for support from council and the borough. In order for the chamber to consider moving forward with the planning for a 2022 parade, it is necessary for us to modify the event in several ways. First, we need to reduce the size of the event. Less parade entries, more local entries for the parade. For example, only local marching bands. Many of you may know that over the years, we had marching bands coming from all over the state of Pennsylvania. Reducing the number of entries would likely reduce the time of the event. My understanding is the parade began to span to around 2.5 hours the last few years, and we would like to cut that back to a little over an hour. We need to significantly reduce costs. This includes costs for several parade-related items, including the expense for services from Borough Police and Public Works, which has increased substantially over the past several years. Between 2012 and 2016, the average cost for these specific services was around $2,000 to $2,500. In 2017, the cost increased to over $10,000 and remained at that rate or higher until the last parade that was held in 2019. We also need to recruit a stronger volunteer base to help plan and execute the parade. This will be necessary to replace the professional parade producer that was managing a significant element of this parade. Nick Allen had mentioned his name is Todd Marcacci. He's a local resident here in Westchester. He produces the Philadelphia Thanksgiving Day Parade. He produces the Cherry Blossom Parade in Washington, D.C., and he is now producing the Philadelphia Holiday Parade, which is taking place on the same weekend that our parade typically was held here in Westchester. This will contribute to a reduction of cost and expenses, but it in turn will increase the chamber's staff time dedicated to the event, as the volunteers will need to be managed. One important data point that I wanted to share, we know that over the years, we believe the borough was charging a higher flat fee rate for garage parking the evening of the parade. We recall it was around a $10 per vehicle charge. So it'd be interesting to look at the parking revenue from the evening of the last parade, which was on December 6th of 2019, and compare that to 2020 and 2021 on those same evenings. So possibly looking at the additional parking revenue generated that could help offset some of the costs for police and public works. One final note, I know that council has discussed a possible revision of the events fee structure that was adopted around 2017. And we understand that the process of revising that policy could take time. Unfortunately, for the possibility of a 2022 parade, the chamber does not have the luxury of waiting much longer to begin our planning. As you can imagine, we're already really far behind. So this brings me to our formal request to you as members of council and to the Borough of Westchester. The chamber is asking for your vote to become a partner with the Greater Westchester Chamber of Commerce for this beloved event that many of your residents and business owners would like to see return. That partnership would come in the form of a subsidy or sponsorship of the necessary services to execute the parade provided by police and public works here in the borough. We are asking that if council is not able to provide 100% subsidy, that a specific amount of in-kind financial support is identified. I'm confident that along with the Chamber, our other partners like the Westchester Business Improvement District, the Chester County Hospital has already indicated to us that they are interested in supporting this event again as well. And I believe that we can work with the Borough of Westchester for a partnership for this event and bring this parade back to our community.
Thank you. I know that from the feedback I've gotten from the public, and from anybody who I've ever talked to, that the parade is a staple and something they want to have here. So I know you have my willingness to help out in what way we can, in any way we can. The parking fee was one of the things that I know we had talked about, and I'd asked Mr. Metrick about recouping some of the cost based on that parking fee. And I was a little confused about the numbers. I don't know if you have any more information on that, Mr. Metrick.
Yeah, up until 2018 and 19, the special event fee had been $5. And so $5 was charged for anyone who wanted to park in some of our downtown surface lots, 2 on Chestnut Street and 1 on Minor Street. Getting better with my street names in the borough. And the 2 garages. So essentially our garage management team would bring on extra employees. They would monitor the lots, and anyone coming in would pay the special event fee. In 2018 and 19, that fee was raised to $10. So the accounting of Christmas parade costs, invoicing to the chamber from the borough in 2019 I sent you included a subtotal of $16,320 of total costs, with a parking revenue offset of $5,460 at $10 a car.
Okay, thank you. I feel like we can charge more personally per car.
The $10 is a slight premium. If you stayed in we charge $1.50 an hour in the parking garages, and it maxes out at $9. So it's a little bit of a premium if you're there for a long stay.
Yeah. Yeah, understood. I just feel like if people would be willing to pay it to come to a free event, to come to town, it's just something that people look forward to. If you told me it was $20 to park there and I lived out of town, I'd probably pay it, but that's me. Thoughts? Ms. Dorsana, you had.
Yeah, so Mr. Metrick and I spent a little bit of time and talking about the fees and the parade and parking, et cetera. And one of the things that we considered proposing is just across the board for 2022, as sort of a COVID relief gesture, is cutting the fees in half for any event scheduled in this year, 2022. So, if the fee was, just using Mr. Metrick's, if it was 16,000, we would just cut that in half to 8,000. We can have the conversation around, partnering with the chamber for this event. And we also did talk about the parking, and I tend to agree with Mr. Stefano that, charging a premium for, parking, people would pay it in general. So I'd be anxious to hear other council members' thoughts on the reduction in fees for 2022 as sort of a COVID relief for all events. So, last week we heard about the parade, we heard about Porch Fest, and we heard about a sneaker fest. So that reduction would apply to all of those events.
Thoughts? Mr. Allen?
I mentioned a lot of this last week, so I'll be brief. But I think we should absolutely help however we can. I like the idea of charging for parking again. I like the idea of talking about that number with a little more data in front of us as well. But I think however we can help the Christmas parade happen, we should absolutely do that. And the other thing I'll say, in terms of scaling the parade back, I think it probably makes sense for this year. It's the kind of thing that in the future I would love to see us work our way back towards that full production that we've kind of grown used to in the borough. Something that I've tried to advocate for here is, I was like a drum major in my high school marching band. I was like very into this. And even in Maryland, I knew about Westchester, and there's the big high school competition here that is regional, it's multi-state. It's really impressive. And the trophy that the university marching band won is generally won by D1 schools. There's a huge hub of like the marching band culture here. I think it makes a lot of sense for us to have a marching band, high school marching band competition here. So we have a couple huge advocates of music education here as well. So I'm all about getting there if we can, in the amount of time that makes sense to get there. But I would love, as we discuss this issue this year and next year, to kind of keep that idea in the back of our minds that it is it's kind of part of our DNA as a borough is marching band, which is something we don't always think about, but it definitely is.
Yep. Ms. Vaccaro, yeah.
So I was not there for the public safety last week, but I am a big advocate of any community event and especially an advocate of the expected community events. So I've lived in Westchester most of my life, and I was not a part of the marching band, but there was no question that this was a huge part of what Westchester was, of what our community is. Music is extremely important. The Christmas parade was always important. It's only become more important over time, and to not have it and to not have our borough supporting it is devastating to me. Now I'm on council, and it's the chance that it wouldn't be there is just really sad. So I want to make sure that we support you in any way that we can. I want to see as much sort of community identity be put into this parade as possible. I am not an advocate of a 3-hour parade because I went to those parades with newborns and babies, and waiting for Santa to come for 3 hours was a little bit long. But the community is number one, whether we're shutting down Gay Street or having the Christmas parade. Building community atmosphere, inviting people into our town, inviting everybody to come together and celebrate whatever it is they're celebrating is extremely important to building the community here. So thank you for everything that you do.
Sure.
Mr. Flynn.
You were waiting for me to say something, I know. For the people in the audience, my name is Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Jingles, because I'm the money guy, or was the money guy. Now it's his problem. Back in the day when our old-fashioned Christmas turned into New York City and Philadelphia, it was very exciting to have the last gigantic, for the last 20 years, the parades in the borough of Westchester. When you're responsible for the budget, you have to look at where and why. As Ms. Walker was mentioning, it became almost an international parade that we were all proud of. But unfortunately, the effort, the manpower, the safety, the planning, everything that went into it was extremely expensive. There's things that go on at that parade that you just take for granted because you show up. The police, our police, forget about just our police. You have every police agency in the area. You have drones. You have things going on that you don't know what's going on to protect the 45,000 people that came to the borough. So what the finance department did was we did a price calculation of what it actually cost the residents of the borough to put on the Christmas parade, and was astronomical. Mr. Yoder was the chair of the Chamber of Commerce, and the initial figure that we came to was about $35,000. And we whittled it down to what it became, and then a 5% increase every year over the years. By proposing a old-fashioned Christmas, it comes back to its roots where it actually was, and it's more manageable. And you probably don't think that I will support this, but at this level, I do support it. If it starts to grow, I would strongly recommend that council go back to the original fee because it becomes an international parade again. Plus, we're coming out of COVID, and I think it's time that we get some people back into the borough. Hopefully not 45,000 people. 20,000 would be nice. If you think about it, a Philadelphia Phillies game is 45,000 people. They have 250 police officers at the stadium. Think about that. We only have 44 cops, plus all of our associates from West Goshen, East Goshen, State Police, the bomb squad, the sniffing dogs from the county. So there's a lot that goes into it, but with this new and improved Christmas parade, 100% support your efforts.
Wow, Scrooge's heart grew 3 times. I don't know if I got the quote right.
Tiny Tim does live.
Mr. McCoy.
Yeah, thank you. I'm fully in support of doing what we can for the parade. If it's one thing that I've heard a lot before I came to council, and now that I am on council, is basically I want my damn parade back. So I'm all for it. I'm surprised, Bernie. I was expecting a completely different opinion there, but I fully support it and hope we can do whatever we can for you.
Yes, and I echo that support. When we met before, I am for it. I think it is a good confidence booster as we come out of COVID, and I think it's be good for our businesses on that particular day as well.
Okay, so Mr. Metric, is this something that we'll put on for consent tomorrow? And exactly what are we putting on for consent? Are we taking that half fee, or are we talking about the parking, or is that something we can iron out those details later?
I think it would help the chamber and help administration to define what we're talking about.
Okay.
And if that's what you want to put on your consent agenda as a reduction of fees for 2022, I'd be very clear about what that is, because that'll help Katie and her team develop their budgets, and they can make reasonable estimates as to what it's going to cost.
So, Ms. Dorsey, that when you had discussed about cutting fees in half, was it for all events or just like larger events?
I think it was for all events, right, for 2022. That's what we discussed, Mr. Metric.
Because I wonder what that would come out to for, say, like a much smaller event. It
would be more affordable. I mean, Madam Mayor is having the Porch Fest with the Green Team. We had the Sneaker Fest. We just, we want this to return to being a destination. As we said last week, we're competing with, Kennett and Phoenixville and media. And, we want folks to come to Westchester as well. So I think what we should vote on tomorrow is reducing the fees by half for each event in 2022 and increasing the parking fee to $20.
So I did have one question, Katie. Your specific dollar ask, you had some statistics on what it cost, manpower, all of that. But
I would say cost and what the chamber was invoiced are probably, sounds like they could be different. I know that the last parade in 2019, when I looked at our financials, the chamber was invoiced for around, I think it was $9,700. So we would be looking for a reduction by half of that amount.
Madam, Ms. Walker, that was after the deduction from the parking as well. Okay.
Yeah.
That was
the real cost to us was the $9,700.
Yeah. Then
So,
what we did was the $5 a car, $10 a car, whatever it was.
Right.
We took that off, and that brought down to the existing $10,000.
sure. So if there's consideration for increasing the fee at the parking garage, we would ask if there would be consideration for, additional reduction. And as Sean said, it will allow us to budget for that cost.
so then if we consider just for this year alone, reducing our cost, the fees, the police fees to half, and then upping the parking garage and all of those event parking to $15 or $20, whatever that looks like, then maybe the cost would be negligible to you. So I think that's something that we could maybe project and work out so that it, you know, it's a win-win for us too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So, Mr. Krowski, yeah.
Sure.
Director of Parks and Recreation. First, I'm for any and every event that's going to happen in town. I've worked with the chamber. I've worked with the bid. I review every special event application that comes through. So I guess my ask, or I'm just trying to figure out when we do this, are we talking about all events across the board that involve even like runs and races, block parties, you name it? There are events that don't take place in the downtown that may not receive a great deal of the parking revenues if we change those fees. Since I'm the one that handles this from the borough's perspective and work with the applicants, I just need a little bit more guidance how we're going to do that. I'm sure we can work those figures out and make it beneficial for all. And, you know, obviously the borough events, the restaurant festival we're trying to bring back, we're bringing back Turk's Head, we're bringing back the Halloween parade. I say we, I mean me. So I just want some clarity once we move forward on this. Again, I support all these events. I think they're great for the town. I did live in town for almost 8 years. Just to make sure that when I'm speaking to the applicants, I can say, hey, you know, you did this event in 2019, it cost you $8,000. It's only going to cost you $4,000 this time around.
Yep. And I think, Mr. Krowski, that, so again, Mr. Metrick and I spent some time talking about it, and the parking fees would apply to events that the borough is sponsoring, right, or co-sponsoring. So the parade, the restaurant festival, et cetera. A run, not necessarily, right? And we're not going to increase the
Right, and we
parking
wouldn't
fee for that.
Hire folks. We wouldn't allow InPark, whoever our parking management company is, to, you know, bring in extra staffing for those events. But yeah, just to let you know, like the Rotary, I already have an application for the chili cook-off to come back in October. So I'm sure, you know, as things get better with the pandemic and we're coming back outside and we're enjoying all these events, I'm going to get more special event applications coming across the desk. That's all.
Yeah, and I agree with the parking. I think that makes sense to have it either be co-sponsored or borough events, but anything in downtown will actually will affect parking, whereas something like a 5K in the southwest part of the borough would not. So, Mr. Holliday, you want to come up? And then Ms. Bain, I see you coming up.
Thank you, Mr. Stefano, Madam Mayor, Council. Matt Holliday, 210 D. Baptiste Lane. Mine I just suggest, because neither Katie or I can be here tomorrow night due to other civic obligations. Might I suggest that you actually just make it like 15 and 15A and have one be Councilwoman Dorsey's proposal about cutting it in half, and have the second be that whatever Mr. Metrics and InPark and Council decide to charge the night of the parade, anything above the $5 rate that you used to charge would be applied to our final tab to reduce, and then just run them as two different motions. That way, whatever council decides, the chamber will at least know what relief we're receiving, so that when our board meets at the end of this month, we can give a green light to the parade, because we really unfortunately can't wait into May any longer before we make our decision.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that makes sense to split or bifurcate. That's the word. Thank you, Mr. Flynn. So that is Mr. Scott's word. Yeah, thank you. So, okay. Miss Bain, come on up. How you doing?
Sue Bain, 726 South Penn Street. You just stole the words out of my mouth. The motion or the discussion tonight was strictly on the Christmas parade. I think that's where you all need to be focused right now. Ms. Dorsey has introduced a second discussion item, which isn't fleshed out. And, excuse me, that's my money. The fees that the borough charges are not money-making. They're covering the cost of the salaries and, you know, whatever. So I think that needs to be a separate item. That needs to go back to a discussion in May when you have a better idea what you're talking about. Okay? In the meantime, yeah, I do support the Christmas parade. I was in it for many years. I really didn't like the 3-hour ones. It was cold.
So if we're going to bifurcate this, I think it would make sense to make it 15 would be to, I don't know, approve the parade at half fee as a separate item. with $20 parking, and then have a separate item that we could discuss for fees going forward, because it is a separate item. Which I don't know if we have to wait till next month, but it could be a separate item. Does that make sense to everybody? Flush out to everybody? Okay. So,
The one thing I would say is, since Westchester is looking at ways to generate a little more income, maybe it would be a discussion going forward to look at event parking for all the different events, not just the ones that are we're being co-sponsoring.
yeah, so I agree, while I agree with that, and I think that would be part of the fee structure then. So that, I think that needs to be a separate item. So I agree. That's what we'll do. So for tomorrow, we're just going to have 16 be on consent, as long as everybody's okay with this, to be 50% cost reduction and $20 parking fee to offset those costs. And then I think going forward, we have to have a separate item where we discuss, not tomorrow, but just the fee structure in general. All right? Did I do it? Okay, good. All right, so that's 16. 17
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you too. Sorry, thank you very much. 17 is a special event application for Porch Fest, which is happening on the 21st of May, 2022. It was 2-0 from the committee. Ms. Dorsey, anything we need to add to that?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's just approving the application, and now their fees have been reduced, so they're, tomorrow night. And the same for 18, the Solely Rich Sneaker Fest.
Okay. Yeah, so those two events, I think they were pretty straightforward, and the committee recommended 2-0. Does anybody have any concerns with either 17 or 18? Anybody out there have any concerns? Darrell? Just this. Okay, yeah. Go ahead, Darrell. Sorry.
Darrell Cook, South Walnut Street. I'm wondering where the cars will be parked when Union Street will be closed.
There'll be a sign with your address on it.
South Walnut Street.
Darrell, charge $20 to park on your lawn.
That is a concern, though. How many blocks is it? Two blocks that'll be closed for 17 for the Porch Fest?
No, it's probably 4 blocks, maybe. Yeah, from the 300 to Brandywine Avenue. Oh, hi guys, there you are.
Hey, Ronnie, how are you?
Hi,
Slowly, yeah.
Ronnie Nolly, 234 East Biddle Street, and I'm representing Westchester Green Team. I think, is it working? It might be me because I'm shorter. West Union from 200 block to 500 is what we requested. And then Lillian, I think working with your office, we also put in for 400 block of Union Street. Dean Street, yes. We were actually just speaking about on Saturday, which is the only day, the event starts from 1 to 7, which is when West Union Street, those blocks will be closed. We did want to work out something for residences who don't have parking from the alley. So I don't know if we can work with I don't know who we would work with to see what the options would be on cross streets to maybe allocate some special parking for residences that don't have alley parking.
Okay.
We are collaborating with Westchester University as well. There is a their parking garage back there. The university is closed, so that could be an option.
I feel like that's a really good option. That makes a lot of sense for them to open it up just for that event and let people park in there. Yeah.
Right. Of course, I don't have the approval yet, but that is something we would work on and try and figure out a solution for the residences who will be impacted in the area.
Okay. All right. It's on our radar, Darrell, so we got it. Okay, good. So are we good for consent for Porch Fest, which is 17? And then are we good for consent for the Rich Sneaker Convention, which is 18? Okay, good. So those will both go on consent. And Porch Fest, just to say, if you want to hear some great jazz stylings on the saxophone, I will be contributing my time for that. So, all right. Moving on to our finance items. Number 19 is Responsible Contractors Ordinance. it was a 2-to-1 approval. Mr. Allen, your finance, but Mr. McGinnis, really, if you want to take this since this was your.
Yes, it was a 2-to-1. Me and Councilman Flynn had a debate regarding that, in which case he requested a modification to Section 3, subsection 11, items A and B. I did update that. I don't know if we have it, but I did update that and sent it out to Sean as well as other members of council. And I believe that Mr. Flynn is now on board with that language for that update.
Do you want to give us just a gist of the 2 amendments you made to deal with apprenticeships, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Or even Mr. Flynn, if you want to talk
well,
this.
he's looking it up. The subsection 11, which I objected to, was because the wording of it was extremely ambiguous. The Class A apprenticeship is an ambiguous blanket statement to cover it. The original document was rewritten by Mr. McGinnis. Now it reads and testifies exactly what is expected of a responsible contractor. Previously, it just stated that a Class A apprenticeship was the gold standard for the method. Not all apprenticeship programs like Del Tech in Delaware and Williamson Trade School and Thaddeus Stevens School. I can go on and on with quality schools that produce excellent craftsmen that aren't necessarily a Class A apprenticeship. But what Mr. McGinnis did was he expertly spelled out exactly what the borough should expect and deleted the words Class A apprenticeship, which is extremely appreciated.
Okay. Yeah, and I did review all that, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I think this is a great move for us as a borough to do this. Any questions or concerns or consent on this? Or Mr. Allen, go ahead.
I won't. If we have consent, we can just move on. But are we good? Yeah. All right, then I'm good. I don't need to.
Okay, you were gonna try to. Okay.
Just to clarify, we would be just like with the handicap parking space, schedule a hearing.
Oh, understood.
to
All right. So, do you think this one would take an incredible amount of time, or do you think we could also do it on the same day as our voting next session next month?
I would suggest we start sooner for this one because you've already advertised the council meeting to start at 6:30, and there's a certain amount of time that you get a little bit of fudge time before you're actually really supposed to start your meeting. So you don't.
What about doing it before the work session, like on the 16th, the Monday?
We could do it on.
So on that at 6:30 on that day.
Yeah, on the 16th. That's a Monday.
Yeah.
Just one question. I want to make sure we don't have any bids coming in that would potentially be affected by this, that from a timing perspective.
None.
Mr.
Yeah, none that I can
The only
think
one
of.
we have come, well, we already approved it tonight, well, approve it tomorrow night, is the paving. The paving is the largest number that we have in the borough for any projects that are coming in town, and that's Glasgow paving. They did our paving last year. They owned their own paving yard for asphalt and did an excellent job. But other than that, nothing exceeds 250,000.
Okay.
So just to confirm, this is going to be on the consent agenda for tomorrow then?
Yeah, but it won't. It has to be done by ordinance. So we'd have to. Tomorrow we're going to consent to scheduling the hearing to be on Monday, May 16th.
Monday, May 16th at 6:30.
Cool. Okay. Great. That's on consent. Item 20 is ARPA funding, which is the American Rescue Plan Act funding. Item I is Parks and Recreation State of Good Repair, and there's an attachment, and that was approved 3-0 by our Finance and Revenue Committee.
Yeah, this one was just due to some budgetary restrictions. There's a few parks, especially those that don't have friends associations, that are in a little bit of a state of disrepair. So this just kind of gets us back up to date with some of those repairs that need to be done.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Mr. Krosky?
No, I think Nick said it pretty well. We have some deferred maintenance that needs to be taken care of, and the ARPA funds fit directly in line with the ask. So if you guys are cool with that, so am I.
Okay. Any objections to the funds being used for that, or any questions on this item? All right, so we'll put that on consent. All right, that's item 20. Moving on to smart growth, we had item 21, approve the PAC endorsement, the Public Arts Commission endorsement for Friends of Association for Care and Protection of Children, proposed mural at 113 West Chestnut. That was approved 3-0. I did see that, looked great. Who's smart growth? Brian, Mr. McGinnis. Any issues with that?
That is the mural right there. It was approved by Harb, and there were no questions. Passed 3-0.
Okay. Are we good with consent for this mural? Yeah, I think that's incredible. I think the other ones that we've had, especially the one on is that Market Street, is amazing. Yeah, Market Street. That's right. Okay. All right, great. That'll go on consent. 22. Item 22 is discuss the zoning hearing applications. There's 21A, which is on West Minor Street. McElry Harvey applicant seeks relief from section 112-304, note 1, to allow the existing mixed-use building to be converted into a single-family dwelling and permit residential use on ground floor. We're discussing whether to send a solicitor. Is that what this is?
That's correct. And just to clarify, the committee recommendation was 3-0 for both of those, not to send the solicitor.
Correct.
Okay, and then 21B is 17 West Biddle, Hazley Builders, applicant seeks relief from section 112-307.b to exceed the maximum 50% impervious coverage allowance and to exceed the maximum 35% building coverage allowance. And that was also 3-0, as Mr. Gore mentioned, to not send a solicitor. So if we decide to agree with that, we don't even need to put this on consent, and we can just let this go away. So does anybody feel strongly we should send a solicitor to this meeting?
No.
All right. So item 22 can just disappear, or whatever you want to call it. So, all right. All right. Item 23, approve resolution for non-disclosure of building permit materials and drawings. This was committee recommendation 3-0 as well. What's this all about?
I mean, essentially, this is pulling permits. It could be for private residences, for retail, for banks and whatnot. So it could involve security issues with that. So we voted 3-0 to uphold or pass this resolution.
Just to expand, essentially any permit application or plans that are fall under the requirements of the Pennsylvania Uniform Construction Code are exempt from the Pennsylvania right to know. So we do not have to provide that information to someone seeking it through the right to know process. There, like Mr. McGinnis said, there could be some security concerns with a private home and other proprietary or copyrighted information on plans.
Okay. Issues with that, or we consent to on that? All right. That'll be for consent. And a resolution doesn't need a separate hearing, correct? That can just be resolved tomorrow. Okay.
Mr. Stefano, number
yes.
24, we're going to ask to be tabled.
Okay. So item 24, Union Station Phase 1 settlement agreement. We're going to table that?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm assuming that's not ready to be, for whatever reason. All right, so item 24, we're going to table. Sorry, I'm making notes for myself. Item 25, approve amended professional consultant reimbursement agreement for subdivision and land development. This was committee recommended 3-0 as well. Consultant reimbursement agreement. What's the...
Yep. So essentially what we're looking to do is to simplify the process for the escrows that we take associated with land development submissions. Currently, we, in order to ensure we're going to get reimbursed for our professional consultants, our attorneys, engineer, traffic engineers, we require the applicant to submit a check with an agreement for $5,000. We hold that money in escrow just in case they don't pay the invoices. What this agreement change would do is require any applicant, whether it's a minor subdivision or a major subdivision, to submit to us a set amount of money. It would be $5,000 for a minor plan and $30,000 for a major plan. We will then withdraw money from that escrow fund to pay our consultants. We will not have to send out separate invoices to the developer to then be reimbursed for those professional fees. It's going to save a lot of time in the finance department and make it easier for us to track those funds.
But in the long run, it's the money's still being used. It's kind of cutting the time.
Correct.
To use it. I got to understand. Okay. Are we consent on that?
Yes.
Okay. 25 is under consent. 26, approve waiver for Evans Court subdivision, corner of North Franklin and East Chestnut Streets, and the deed of correction. This committee was 3-0 as well. Is there any?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like an error. I believe there was an error, and gentleman applied, and it looks like he's going to be correcting that error.
Okay. Any issues with this? Are we consent for this? Okay. Moving right along. 27 is our approving our HARB 2022 HARB submission recommendations. All of these were committee recommended 3-0. In the past, I've not gone through these item by item, but if anybody has any issues on any particular one, I'm happy to break it down. But if the committee's recommending all of them, and they seem like pretty straightforward. So, okay, so we'll make 27A, B, C, D, and E all under consent. All right. Moving on to other business is approving our March 15th and 16th, 2022 Borough Council meeting minutes. Does anybody have any issues with the minutes from last month? We can put that under consent. Okay. And any other business? Going once, going twice? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.